everyone. Welcome to another edition of Spilling the Tea on GovCon. I'm Teresa Moon, Director of Market Strategy for Parabolis. We are the preeminent partnership for government contractors, providing holistic support that includes a line of credit to fund your growth. The purpose of this podcast is to assist small businesses with success in the federal marketplace by introducing them to industry experts and resources that they may not otherwise know about. Today, my guest is no stranger to the show, my friend, Dr. Robin Desmore, CEO and founder of Avant-Garde Concepts, a Florida-based firm that focuses on spearheading compliance requirements, strategy management, and delivering federal contracting guidance. Dr. Desmore is a dynamic subject matter expert with more than 30 years of government contracting experience. She's also a member of the board of directors for the National Veteran Small Business Coalition. Welcome back to the show, Robin.
Thank you. So happy to be here, Teresa. Thank you.
I am so happy for you to be here too. I don't get to see you as often as I would like, so even sitting across the screen from you is good enough for me, and to hear your voice. And there's so much going on right now in our industry, and I think your particular expertise, but your candor even more so, is why I really wanted to have you on for this purpose. But before we get jumping into the topics at hand for today, I want you, for those that might not know who you are, to share a little bit about your background with our audience. Give us some detail. You have military experience. You served in the military. I want you to talk about how that impacted why you moved into what you're doing today, and then also chat about the services that Avant-Garde Concepts provides to the industry as well.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you, Teresa. Actually, Avant-Garde is a product of everything I've done over the years. So I was in during, the Gulf War many months ago. And from there, I think everything just kind of gravitated towards me because I got out actually because of a military. I blew out my knee. So I was discharged because I was broken. That's always what I say. They broke me and they threw me out. So here we are, still near and dear to my heart. And the Army is by far the most pivotal experience of my life. So from there, I never really got very far away from it. Everything I've done has led to continuously working with the government, working with the military, helping them in any particular way, shape, or form. So over the progression of my career and my education, it's always been somewhat focused on government contracting in some level, in some capacity. I've worked for a lot of big companies, the Lockheeds, the GDITs, the Raytheons of the world. And then when at some point, a pivot point in my life, I had a choice to make, did I want to continue on that particular big wheel of life, or did I want to start it? So I started my own company. I worked for a couple of small companies before that and realized that I had a lot more to give. So I started Avant-Garde. And from there, we've been kind of all over the place. Now, I consider myself something but an expert in, all things go, just because that's where I started and that's what I know. Contracts compliance are my sweet spot, but truly understanding how the government works and how it works against programs and how it's always been a sponge, I've always just absorbed it. So from that particular context, I'm not challenging that I know every, forsaken thing that's in there, but I know enough to work every procurement, any particular type, compliance, contract, proposal, anything that is good, because I'm going to have some understanding of it. So with that, Guard is kind of that exactly too. I mean, we help small businesses, we help them grow, help them understand, help them maneuver, whatever particular capacity. All my clients are they're all amazing. I can't even say that they're not, because they've all been here since the beginning, right? And they continue to keep growing, and I am just proud and happy for them to keep doing it the same way I want to do it, right? I'm also on the other side of the fence, kind of a co-contractor, and I do subcontracting work. I haven't had my own prime. I'm a little scared of it, but that's actually what kind of jabbed, this whole conversation with you, because it wasn't that I was scared of it. It's more of being prepared for it. And obviously as a board member at NVSBC, and I have lots of a big, huge community of veterans that I constantly talk to and trying to help them, like, what's your biggest problem? And they're like, I got to get this. I got to get this. I'm like, do you have this or this yet? Even, before there, and so here we are in this conversation, because I think it's not something talked about. And it's such a rat race in many ways that if you don't
I just think experience proves that, though, right? You don't know what you don't know. So,
and the statistics, and I'm going to say this as a PhD, Statistics can be made up. However, if you understand the parameters of how statistics are built or how the logic of a statistic is built, you can understand it. They talk. I've seen it anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 of small businesses coming in, and how many are left after a year. And that also is a product of this conversation because
Yep.
in a year, 10% are left, maybe a little bit more depending on the year, depending on the area.
Yep.
10%. And you go, that's huge. Even if it is 5,000 that want to come in, right? If
Right.
5,000 come in, that means only 500 are surviving in some capacity or maintaining. I'll say maintaining like that.
I
So,
think businesses need to look at that so that they know, am I going to be part of that group that makes it, or
mhm,
am I going to be the part that exits? Because all these other business owners that are exiting after a year aren't doing it because they weren't working their asses off, right?
right.
It happened because there were certain things that they maybe didn't ask for help with, or they didn't know going into it were going to be points of issue for them. And
Mhm,
so not getting all their ducks in a row before they really started going after stuff is so important. That's why I loved. So you were in town for the Vets 25, the NVSBC's conference that they do annually down here in Orlando a couple months ago. And when you got home, I follow you religiously online. You wrote a post on LinkedIn that hit home so hard. I immediately reached out to you and I was like, I was going to have you back on the podcast again anyway, because like I said at the beginning of this program, I love talking with you about stuff because you are super knowledgeable and a very, widespread subject matter expert as it comes to a lot of the topics that I like to bring up on this show. But you break it down in a way that isn't over people's heads. And too often subject matter experts get full of themselves and they want to talk like they have a PhD. And it's like, you don't have to do that. People want, we want real. And your article on LinkedIn was so real, but it hit on so many aspects of what we're dealing with today because people tend to make emotional decisions, even in business. And when we have a lot of changes going on right now, it isn't new, right? The world is changing every single day. This isn't something new, but that fear mongering perspective is so prevalent right now in every industry, in the world in general, right? We live in
mhm,
uncertain times always, but there's something about it right now. And so these emotional impulses are permeating into the way that people do business. And the things that you said were definitely, eye-catching and head-turning, right? Because people don't talk about things the way that we're gonna talk about it in a minute. But you also broke it down in a way that makes complete sense, and it brings people level set so that this emotional knee-jerk reaction to the environment that we're living in right now is, you know, it is the refreshing and exactly what we need in the moment type of advice. And so, I was thinking through some things when I was preparing for this conversation and, you know, given the fact that what we're talking about is inspired by something that you wrote, I'm throwing your words back at you because I know a lot of other people who follow you know exactly what I'm talking about. So when we start bringing up different topics within it, they'll know. But I was particularly struck with how you proposed using resilience as the new KPI, which I love. And I want to start there because I think the most poignant portion of it and, in your face was exactly how you started everything. And so I want to put you on your toes a little bit to talk about what you mean when you said that small businesses are being encouraged to sprint even before they built muscle.
It's a very broad topic, and everybody may have some debatable situation of it. And I purposely did make it a little controversial because I have so many that I want to help, and we have these conversations, and some parts of it I sat down at I call it speed dating, but it was speed government contracting, SME information. Like they had questions, I had to give it like right off the top. And that's actually what built this. Like they had questions that were like, hey, can you help them? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait a minute, let's back up. There's a whole lot of things in between where you're trying to get to. And that's the part that I was like, you're trying to get to that big fat win. And you haven't even understood what the whole government GovCon community is about, or the whole industry. First off, as expensive as can be to be in the industry as it is, just
Mhm.
to do the compliance aspects that you have to do, especially now. The CMMC thing is almost astronomically for anybody, even including some of the big guys, because the bigger you are, the more expensive it gets. So You go, how are you? Do you have your accounting system? Yeah, well, I'm doing this or I'm doing that. Everybody goes QuickBooks, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's even not even that. Understand what you're signing up to. And they're like, yeah, it's okay. I'll just, no, you signed up to a form. You know, you have penalties, you have this, you have that. And they're like, oh, no, do you have these particular things? And uh, how do we go? I don't want to go into specifics because some people may actually know who I'm talking about. But the more important part was is like, hey, you're trying to do something that it's like trying to lift a 500-pound, barbell or something, and you haven't even lifted a 5-pound one yet.
Right.
So, if you're going into this industry, you got to slowly and methodically do it. And I get it. Everybody has to eat. That's the problem with it. If you don't have other streams of income or other ways to support yourself, this is a very hard industry, which
Mhm.
means there's lines of credit. And Teresa, that we always talking about.
Yep.
You have to be very careful because you can easily and quickly get underwater.
Yep.
Now, it happens to everybody, every small business. There's things that happen that you just don't plan for or even see. COVID is a huge piece of it. Even though I
Yep.
hate talking about COVID, it's not just COVID. It could be, I have 3 people and all of a sudden somebody just quits. How do you replace that person immediately? Do you have the funding for it? Like how are you going to do it? Because if you don't, you could actually, if you're on a contract form, you can lose the contract.
Yep.
Notorious too. So you're going, you need to just methodically at those downtimes. This is another part. You want to find your food, find those opportunities, but you got to also, when you have other downtime, build yourself up.
Yeah.
What do I nationally need? I need to have policies and procedures for certain things because if I have them now, they're not going to necessarily change too much. I'm going to have a very honed in, capability statement or even a fundamental strategy plan for what that capability looks like and how.
Mhm.
And I still attend classes. I don't always like it, but I
Yeah.
attend classes to stay relevant to what's going on and what people are saying about the industry in a whole.
Yeah.
And that was a big piece of like, you need, especially right now, how everything is changing. The word consultant is a bad word,
Mhm.
consultant, whatever it may be, is a bad word. We're in the middle of doing it. We're like, oh, this is a good time for change. I love change. People hate change, but this
Yeah.
is what it's about, right? So they want to get to it and then they'll worry about everything when they get to it. But that's actually the worst time to actually.
Right. There's no plan. If there's no plan behind it, but I think that's a small business epidemic in general, the lack of planning because people you in order to be an entrepreneur, you're one, you have to be confident in your own abilities, right?
Yep.
But what happens is your business starts to grow because you're willing to change. If you're not changing, you're not growing, right? It's cliche, but it's true. So you start to grow and you start to grow bigger than what you are. You have to keep educating yourself, and not everyone does that. And the ones that make it are the ones that are constantly willing to lend themselves into the belief that they don't know everything, right? Because how many business owners have you worked with, I'm sure, that think that they know everything,
Yep.
including what you do? So it's like, why do you need me if you already know what I do, right? But I think and those aren't the learning curves.
Yep.
Those are the obvious, right? The learning curves are the way the procurement process works, the different ways that each agency or a prime does business with their supply chain, and being able to deal with different humans because this isn't a robotic relationship. This is human to human interaction. So you're dealing with another emotional being who's coming to the table with all of their baggage from whatever's going on in their life. And you may or may not be hitting the nose on the head emotionally for them on that day. So, you've got all kinds of variables in place. And while you are protected in certain aspects because of, the way that we do business with the government and the way that we utilize the FAR and things like that in comparison to commercial work, you still are just floating on a breeze until you catch on to something. And then you got to hold onto it as tight as you can
I do.
because it can fly away or drop with the breeze, So it's really difficult. And I think, you know, in different environments that I've been in, business owners are like not willing to give it the amount of time that it typically takes to move into sustainable growth. They want to go from, today, I started my business yesterday. I'm going to get a prime contract in my first contract. And
Mhm.
to your point, they don't recognize all of the details that go in line with that. Being a subcontractor is not a deficit to the way that you do business. You're not responsible for everything with it. You're going to get paid for doing what you do best and not managing the entire contract. So there are so many benefits to it. So I
Yep.
think mind frame perception is 100% of everything that we're talking about right now. And I think part of it is you've already dealt with it a little bit, but I want you to talk about it a little bit more because I know that you coach businesses that you work with on this. But how can small business owners be deliberate with their process improvement? Because I think there's something particular about the way that you say that and the being deliberate part.
Well, I'm never going to say don't hustle. Hustle's what, keeps us motivated and keeps us, engaged. But
Right.
it's about thinking before you leap and then planning accordingly. So the whole resilience thing and deliberate resilience and improvement, a process of how you're doing everything. You want to get really good at it, just hone in on it. That's the resilient part because you always have something great to fall back on.
Hmm.
And I say this because this is my own experience as well. But I know that this is what I have veterans and stuff that I've met, great products, great visionaries, just can't execute against it because they don't have all of that other piece of it, right?
Mhm.
You're just, okay, we're going to we're going to try this, we're going to try this. And I met some recently that they have a whole line of things that they do, but they're struggling on, getting the right contract and like so focused on it. And I'm like, because I think you're too far everywhere to just own in. This is where you build your resilience, building that base, building that platform for everything that you do from that point forward. Because pivoting in any strategy is extremely important too. So, establishing a baseline of what your resilience looks like. What is that baseline?
Hmm.
Can you do it in other ways? Can you find different clients? Can you do commercial? Can you do other I want to say other government contractors. Well, not just subcontracting. Subcontracting is great, but everything that we're happening right now, everybody's learning that even as a sub, you could get kicked out because everybody wants
Right.
to keep their work share. So doing the baseline, what's the end to end, what's your value stream and how you want to do things, how you capture, information, how you do everything you do in your business to make sure that you stay on top of it. And then do kind of bite-sized pieces of frameworks. For me, always a continuous process improvement person. So let's improve the processes and how we do it and what we do, the words we say, the people. So that when you build it here, it doesn't matter if you have 2 people or 200, you still have the foundation of what you and what that company means. I mean, this is a
Yep.
lot goes to culture when some people are frantic and some companies, small businesses can't survive because people don't want to work for them because they're frantic and they're all over the place and nothing is structured.
Right.
So that's just always a conversation. So you have that, you have like, how are you looking at your billables? And this is also part of what I was looking at it, the KPIs, right? It can't just be numbers. So you only grew $100,000 this year. It's still progress, right? It
Right.
might be a little progress, but you're getting your name out there. You're getting your information out there. You're talking to more people. And again, you have to figure out how to hone in a little bit more about that foundation because at
Mhm.
one point, I keep telling people, it takes one contract for you to blow up.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you have to backpedal, the front pedal, and you don't catch up with yourself. But you still
Right.
need to hire too many people to come and do this, and it's still disjointed and not consistent with what you want. And I read this because I also do M&As, support, due
Yep.
diligence, stuff like that, support for clients. And this has happened a lot. And I keep saying, I don't know what's inside that house because the house looks a little crazy. It's kind of wonky this way, wonky that way. So it's
Right.
always the resilience of understanding what that looks like because one, if some people want to sell their place, whatever, that's fine. It's not what my perspective is. But if you have a good house, you have all your things in place and how that the banks are going to like you more,
Yep.
the prime contractors are going to like, the government's going to like you, the auditors or whatever it is, everybody's going to see that you have a better foundation for who you are, what you are to grow and to build.
Absolutely.
So
And I love it. And the analogy with the house too. Obviously, your house can look great from the inside, but if you built it on sand versus building it on top of cement block, right? It's going to be different. And so I think with your building processes, in the beginning and having it be a steady growth within that, right? Because like you said, you might have 2 in the beginning and 200 in the end, and you can build on it, but the foundation has to start somewhere. And if you wait until you've got 20 employees to start that foundation, you've built it on top of sand. So it's really, I love that. I think small businesses have a hard time seeing it that way, especially those who go from not working in big business first. Those of us who have, Fortune 500 backgrounds that have been involved in corporate environments where that structure is given to you from the beginning, you can run quickly through a training process that was set up with purpose. But if you get put into a role where you're like building it yourself and there's no training and there's no processes and procedures, it takes you a lot longer to be running at full steam because you didn't have the background given to you in a handbook or videos or whatever to begin with. And so think about it from that perspective, right? There is a lot to learn from the big businesses that you may have worked with before and implanting some of that learning into how you're growing your own business. I think people forget about that. They're like, "Oh, I hated that. That's why I don't work for those companies anymore. So I'm going to do things totally different." And it's like, well, okay. Let me know how that works for you because those businesses sustained for as many years as they have and have grown to the heights that they have because of the things that they put in place at the ground level so that people have room for growth. And so I love that. That and the house is always people know that, it's like they understand that analogy. So it's great.
The business is the house at this point, right? So do you want your house, I won't even go to the three little pigs.
Right.
Rent your house out. Okay, just
Yeah.
that's the analogy. It's a very straightforward and true.
Yeah.
No company, no large, ginormous company that's out there right now built it. They all started building it on foundations of strength and
Yeah.
consistency for the sustainability, for the resilience, for the consistency. That is actually an even more important part of everything, for the compliance of everything, because you have to be compliant in this market, period.
Yeah.
If you're
I
not,
think, I mean, yeah, especially in government contracting. And we're going to talk about that too. But, you posed a question to your audience in your article, and I'm going to pose it to you because it's a perfect build on from what we've just been talking about in terms of process improvement. And I think part of it is people want to run so quickly from the start, and you encourage people to look at things differently. So, perception is key, right? So, what's the boldest decision you as a business owner ever made to grow slow?
actually, it was this past year, right? So we, okay. Well, that part is you're like, now, you feel like you have some, I don't know, crutch to stand upon or even a pedestal to stand upon. It's really untrue. We spend a lot of energy and time focused in on trying to do just that. Every single one of the opportunities we went after last year got canceled.
Wow.
That was like a kind of a shocker and a step back. I was like, and they were all 8 days, 90% of them were 8 days or small business set asides. And I was like, wait, like, so for me, I look at that going, okay, something's happening in the market. And this is before the new regime came in and everything else like that. The administration has changed, but that had nothing to do with it at a particular point in time. I just took it, and so I took a big step back and said, we're stopping all of this. We're spending so much time, money, and energy just on that for me, it was impacting the other side of the business that was perfectly good. It was keeping the lights on. It was keeping the house, structured. But going after it, I was like, wow, okay, we need to be a little bit more methodical. Now, there are requirements when you have an AA that you have to do specific amount of BD work and opportunities and go after and stuff like that. So I focused on parts of that, but not interrupting what was really important to growing and understanding. So I took a little bit of a step back and honed in the strategy a little bit differently. So I spent a great deal of time this past year rebuilding my strategy for the next 3 years. Took that as okay, this is the things we want to do. We're going to be deliberately focused on what is important at that moment because I have great plans in there. But if the market all of a sudden, as it's doing right now, got a little crazy, we have to sidestep and worry about the sustainability and the resilience of what we have and then focus back on it. Because I want my business to succeed. I want it to be here in 10 years from now, because, I'm on going on our 5th year. So that's the peak, right? You hit the 5th year, you're usually really good, sustainably good after that. So we're at our 5th year and we're like, okay, now let's move a little smaller. And so me and the team got together and how we're planning, who's doing what, and how it's all going to grow and move and stay flexible. That was actually a bigger piece that I wanted to make sure it stayed a little bit more flexible. So if like in this past year, I did something I had never done before either. And that was go to 2 conferences, 2 weeks back to back.
Yeah, you did.
I never do it again.
Yeah.
Both places I was speaking, we had huge, social engagements and stuff like that. I was exhausted. My team was exhausted. And Well, I met some amazing people and came out with some really great context, which is how this my whole article was even written.
Right.
Realize all these small businesses were all talking to each other and they're all looking in the same exact way. Like, so do you want to work together? Do you want to work together? Do you want to work together? I'm always like, yes, absolutely. We got to find the right thing. And I'm
Yeah.
just not about, again, I tried to do a lot, like a lot of things to put it out there and it didn't go anywhere and they canceled actually. So I was like,
Mhm.
hey, this is a sign from the universe telling me to slow down, think about what I want to do and be very streamlined with it, I guess is the best way to describe it.
I think that's wonderful advice though, because a lot of people too. So those business owners that aren't like the ones we talked about a little bit earlier, who do put plans in place, they also should recognize that it shouldn't be written in stone. You have to be willing to take a look at it again and say, is this still working for me? And if it's not, what needs to be changed? Which is what you and your team did. And that is so important. I am so grateful for the experience that I'm getting right now at our company, being a part of. We've been around 13 years now, right? We're moving into our 13th year. And things have changed. And even though the foundation is still very sturdy and firm, the way that we do business because of the changing environments around us
Mhm.
have allowed us in a good way to change. And if it hadn't been for our leadership being willing to say, we don't have to be the same in order to grow, we need to change with the environment around us so that we can be better servants of the industry that we work within. And so having courageous leaders show you that it's okay to look at your plans and make some changes because that change is going to instigate and encourage more growth. It isn't, oh my gosh, well, that's taking your foot off the pedal. No, it's not. It's
Mm.
putting your eyes back on the road because you took your eyes off the road because you put it in cruise control, and the cruise control doesn't control staying within the lines. It just makes the speed stay the same. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yep.
And so I hear everything you're saying in such a positive way. And I think a lot of people think that if they're not busy, then they're not successful. And
Right.
that's not true because you might be doing things wrong and you're not focused on it because you don't have enough time to work on your business because you're too busy working in your business because you're busy all the time and you're not planning for what you need to do to get over the 5-year hump, get
Yep.
towards the 10-year. Getting to 5 years is monumental. Most
Right.
businesses are dead in the water by then. And
Yep.
so the fact that you are there already shows that you've been able to manage it. And I think that's the measurable growth. Growing slow doesn't mean, taking your foot off the gas. It means being able to make new plans that support what you had in place before or that are changing because you've got to course correct because what served you before might not be serving you now for all different ways. And I think that's so impactful, and it's emotional as much as it is
Yes.
professionally sound, and so it's not, being emotional about your business. It is your baby. You should be. You should take it personally. You should care, all of those things. But I think so many business owners are so, like, egotistical in it, and they don't recognize that, things have to change in order for growth to happen. And so kudos to you for not only recognizing it in your business, but then turning it back over to the industry that you serve and posing these questions so that people can actually look at it from a positive perspective because you help them with things like that. And I mean, I know we're going to end the conversation on a big subject, which I know is, speaking of babies, this is something that you're super passionate about and very smart about. And I think that's this kind of segues from what you were talking about in terms of some of the 8A projects that you were working on that were falling short or falling off the map, period. And so, in terms of contract vehicle consolidation and growing compliance requirements, businesses are affected by this regardless of their size.
Yep.
So, what are you seeing in today's landscape, right? How are businesses best capable of dealing with these two issues?
Oh, this is a big conversation because
I
everybody on each side of all the sides of the fence. And I actually was talking to a GSA POC that I've known for a long time, and I'd asked her, like, what's it looking like on your side of the fence? Because GSA is supposed to be taking over all these things. It's like, well, there's lots of good things coming.
Right,
All she could say now, like, well, that's great. It's
right.
going to get better because right now it's not going to work if you're, trying to increase certain pieces of it. So I guess for the most part, the consolidations if you've been in the industry for any point in time, you'll understand everybody, it consolidates and it expands. It consolidates and it goes back out again. So this is just another, it's going back in again. They want to make sure everything is kind of controlled and more cost efficient, which it should be because it's way out of control.
Right.
So from my standpoint, I'm looking at it going, how are they being affected? Well, I know everybody I've talked to has lost positions in some way, shape, or form, right? And have lost contracts or lost something as of it, which honestly, it's a shared experience at that point. Right? There might be some out there that haven't lost anything, and I'm like, good for you because that means you're doing the right thing and you're essential to what they. But the threshold, I think that adding more into consolidated makes it more competitive, but also creates that bigger bottom half, right?
Right.
80% of the business is done by 20% of the people, of 20% of the companies, right? That means that 80% of that business, or 80% of whatever's left is trying to get 20% of that business to go, what? Like, yeah. So it's a rat race. This is what I talk about, the rat race. So
Yeah.
from my standpoint, I think that there's going to be more emphasis on teaming. I mean, if there can be any more, but that's actually a whole nother topic all by itself because that's a difficult area too, because you got to team with the right people and you got to make
Right.
sure that you're methodical, which is also part of slow growth as opposed and resilience rather than just let me just jump in bed with somebody that I think it can work with because it doesn't always work that way.
Right.
It really doesn't. And so also, I'm going to say this, and I don't mean it to be any crass or anything, find the opportunities to differentiate you and what you do. I know it's a hard state. It's a hard statement because everybody said I differentiate because of this. No, there's a lot more to it than just that. What you bring to the table, how are you going to help a team member? How are you going to help them win this contract or build this contract or help the customer in the end? There's so many different ways of looking at it and having that conversation that a lot of people don't. Well, I have this skill capability. Is it good? Because there's 100 of them or 1,000 of them. Cybersecurity is out of control right now because everybody does it in some way, shape, or form, but you don't know until you get in there to find out if they are actually really good.
Yeah.
Right. So I also have that's one of my other concerns about when you grow. Are you growing with the right people? You're growing in the right capacity with the right team members. And I can tell you the subcontractors I've had, they're inside my circle. I will team with them in any way, shape, or form because they know my value, I know their value, and we know what we bring to the table that each of us, complements each other with. So it's important and to understand who they are. And there's always friends, there's friends in the network. They're like, oh, okay, can we team together? Those are sometimes the worst people to team with. Do you know why? Because they aren't always the most sincere. I've been in this industry so long, and there's friends and people I've known, colleagues for years. Those are the last people I'm going to bring into my network. Not because I don't trust them. Some of them I do. I would do anything for them, but they're not necessarily going to help me move and build my resilience and my sustainability.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's tricky. There's a lot to it. And so I think building a good team of resources around you is always important. You're a part of mine. I mean, when it comes to being able to, it is almost more important to me to be able to share my network than it is for me to earn business because it's building that value. That's the differentiator, right? What's the difference between me and my competitor? I don't care if I get your business today or not. I want to help you with what you need right now. That's a big differentiator, right? I know it's different when it comes to certain types of proficiencies and things like that. Understanding the market research, competitive analysis, very important. Most people are like, oh, we don't have competitors because we're so good at what we do. Well, that's not true. And so I think doing your homework, recognizing the differences between your business and other businesses is a good way to figure out where you fit into a mission and differentiating yourself. But having someone that's more knowledgeable than you on your team, I mean, is very effective leadership to hire people that you believe to be smarter than you. Because if you're the smartest person in the room, you've plateaued. There's nowhere to go.
You're in the wrong room. You're definitely in the wrong room.
Right. Like, that's it. Yeah. And some people who are there and believe that of themselves are the only ones in that room that believe that. And I think that's funny too. But, I definitely want to have you back on again soon. We're heading into, the fourth quarter, and that for some reason ends up, providing its own world of anxieties for people, good and bad, right? Because there's a lot of opportunity in fourth quarter, but there's also a lot of stress. And so I'd love to have you back as things change so we can talk about some of these more of the compliance requirements that we see that are coming down.
Yep.
Cybersecurity is not going to be the only one that, as GSA moves in and starts taking things over, you're a great person to have in to talk about things like that as well. But I appreciate your candor today because I know, I put you on the spot. I took your questions that you posed outward and lent them into your own personal process. And so I appreciate it. And I loved having this chat with you today. So we'll have you back on again soon.
Absolutely. I so appreciate it, Teresa. I love the conversations. So I don't think there's anything that you could ask that's ever going to be taboo. So, open book.
Might have to work on that then.
Oh, wait.
Challenge accepted. Well, thank you again for your time.
Thank
This has
you.
been an amazing conversation. And thank you all for joining us. As always, we pride ourselves on sharing the most insightful and exciting people and information to help you better navigate your GovCon journey. If you like what you heard today, you can hear all of our past podcasts, which are archived on our Parabolis YouTube channel. Stay tuned for all of our future guests in the coming months as we help you grow to great heights in the year ahead. I'm Teresa Moon, and this is Spilling the Tea on GovCon. Have a great day, my friends.